I'm John Grafft, and I love Chicago real estate. Between showings, I stop in my favorite places, talk with local business owners, and bring their story to you. This is my Chicago.
This is very comfortable and cool.
Thank you.
This is such a cool spot. While Adam was getting everything set up, we've been hanging out here and
Yes.
just sitting, and I was sitting over there at first. Was this your idea?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
With a team of people who have helped support me along the way, but mainly I am doing this independently, and so that's been really special. So I'm grateful for all the people who have kind of said, "Yeah, I think you can do this. This would be an awesome idea," or given feedback. As parents who have said, "Yeah, I think that would be a great business model," or maybe you can try this, or things like that. So. Mm-hmm.
You're in Lincoln Commons.
Yes.
I feel like this location's perfect. How did you choose this spot?
So, not to get into too much of the nitty gritty, but it's important for the licensing regulations that it is within a shopping community. Okay. And so that's part of why Lincoln Commons stuck out. Okay. So Play2day is license exempt. So that means that a DCFS official
That's
normally...
the Department of Child and Family Services?
Yes, exactly. Sorry. Some of the acronyms are so commonplace to me that... So normally a daycare will be DCFS certified. That's by the state. They go through all this long list of steps and protocol. And so Play2day is license exempt. And the reason I wanted to be license exempt is because I wanted to create a middleman between a play space where parents come to the place and stay with their kids, and they're the ones responsible for their children while they're in that space, and a daycare where you're dropping them off for 6-8 hours a day sometimes. Because I knew that, especially in Chicago, there are some families that would pay for all-day daycare, but they don't actually need that because one of the parents doesn't work, or they want to bring their kid home for nap time or things like that. And so just from, again, this kind of market research, anecdotally, I was able to say, okay, we don't need a place that's, you're able to drop off your kid for 8 hours. There are plenty of wonderful daycares like that in the area, and I support those daycares. Play2day is something different than that. So with the license exemption, it just means that the parents have to stay on the premises of Lincoln Common while their child is in our care.
Okay.
Yes. So, and that can be for a maximum of 3 hours a day. So that's why this was so important, because parents can go to Phil's and get a coffee. They can go work out. They can go to the spa across the street, all that stuff. So there's a lot of options to do.
That's so smart. So before we came here, I didn't do a ton of research.
Yeah, that's okay.
You're right here in Lincoln Commons. We're trying to connect this whole community.
Yes.
So I've never heard of anything like that. I didn't even know that exists. It seems very niche, but if you live here, that's the best service in the world.
Yes, if you live here, so the people who live in the apartments at Lincoln Common or are purchasing at the Orchard, honestly, they would have the best run of it. But then I also have a lot of clients who live in the area, and they just can walk down. We were talking about stroller parking earlier. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are walking by in strollers on Lincoln Avenue, and so there are people who live within close proximity as well. Mm-hmm.
What was it like starting this? Where'd you get the idea? How'd you have the idea? Especially knowing more now, I learned this is something different than I think what it was when I walked in.
Yeah.
Where did that all come from?
So I used to work at a fitness studio. It was a boutique fitness studio, and I got to know the parents there. It was mostly women who came there. There were some men, but I got to know the women, and I would see them in this transition from getting engaged, getting married, and then they started having kids. And these are women who live in downtown Chicago. They like to be active. They like to be social with their friends. And so these women said, I just need 2 or 3 hours to myself, or to get this appointment done, or to go have this coffee. And I don't know what to do with my child. You can't really hire a babysitter for that time, because a lot of your babysitters might be in high school or college, and they usually have classes during that time.
Okay.
So I actually became, my schedule was really unique at this fitness studio. And I love kids. I just love being with kids, and needed kind of that energy in my life. And so I became the pseudo childcare for the, the fitness studio. And so that's really where this idea started. Like I said, the team of women behind me supporting me would have been the clients who have said, I would use that. Absolutely. There's nothing like that in Chicago, that you should definitely start it. So that's how this idea came about. So that was about, 2017. I left my job at the fitness studio and started a job nannying with a family. That was mostly so I could get my ear to the ground in childcare in Chicago. Kind of what are people talking about? Where are families going? What are the play spaces? What are the trends? And then I was also able to have a job where I had an end. And so after work, or before work, I would go and work on Play2day. Nice. And be able to research that license exemption process that I told you about, and the area and things like that. So,
how long did you work on your business plan?
All in all, it was about 2 years from when I left that job and started nannying to actually opening up. So part of that time was build out, but
I was going to say there's probably at least 6 months of build out.
Oh yeah, I think build out might have been even almost a year.
Yeah.
Build out was a process.
Well, this is such a cool place, and when we started out,
Thank you.
I did want to know whose idea this was, but I meant like this. Whose idea
Oh,
was this? This is so cool.
Yeah, sorry. So I had just wanted to have a tree house. I thought that would just be really cool. I wanted kids to be able to kind of jump and explore, and I want them to cultivate their curiosity in this space. So the tree house was my idea. The way it actually looks now today was the work of my architecture firm.
Okay.
They're a design build architecture firm, and they are phenomenal and great with vision. And so I had said, this is kind of what I'm looking for. And they said, this space has really tall ceilings. We can use this. We can, take advantage of this. So it was a joint effort. But yeah.
What company did you work with?
I worked with Perimeter Architects.
Mm-hmm. What was that process work? What was that process like to work with a design firm? I hear mixed bags all the time. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I first got connected with Perimeter. It was my cousin's husband's friend. So it was a family connection. And he's about our age. And so I felt super comfortable sharing with him my vision and my dream, and felt that we had that connection as well. So he was really the one who came up with the layout of the space and helped me really think through a lot of the functional things. So I knew I wanted a coffee station. And so he said, that has to be on the same water line as the bathrooms and things like that, or else it's going to cost more money. So they were really, really helpful with just thinking through all of those things. But then even as far as when I started purchasing furniture or started getting little furnishings here or there, or little design techniques, you can see the yellow, the trimming right there. So the yellow is a color that we like just to brighten it up. Yellow is actually the first color that infants start to recognize and to realize. Yes.
So children don't see the whole spectrum from the get-go?
No, they usually just see black and white at first for the first couple months, about 2-3 months, and then they start to see additional colors.
I never knew that. What comes afterwards?
Yeah, I actually don't know what comes afterwards. That's
but yellow's first.
Yes, yellow's first. I know that.
So that's one of the reasons you see that. You see that so much with children's things.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yes, excuse me. So things like that, because the architects are design minded as well, they came in towards the end of build out and said, I think we could use some yellow there. I think that would be a good touch.
That's
or
nice.
Bringing this additional kind of wooded feeling into the baby area as well to kind of tie it together. Things like that.
I think the space is beautiful. I think they did a great job. And it's so cool as you walk me through the property. There's different areas for different things.
Yeah.
And you're only 1,500 square feet here, but it feels a lot bigger, especially with the tall ceilings.
Yeah, yes. The tall ceilings have been clutch, and there's great front windows, so that's nice for some natural light as well.
So how did you choose this space?
Yeah, so I think that families that live in Chicago, especially with younger kiddos, love to still be close to the city, but not necessarily right in downtown. And so Lincoln Park felt like a really great neighborhood where it's accessible to families that are living north of there, accessible to families that are living maybe in River North, south of there. And so it kind of was this middle point of, I think it's accessible to a lot of families. So that was kind of the goal.
How about this location?
Yeah, this location, most of it was just because with Lincoln Common and the regulations surrounding the DCFS licensing. And so Lincoln Common, though, has so much to offer, which I'm really grateful for. So while their children are in our care, parents can do so many things on the property. They can get a bite to eat, get a coffee, all sorts of things. So that was part of it, was it's going to add to the experience of Lincoln Common.
I think you're right. How do you police that? How do you know if they're still on premises?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's language in our waiver that every parent signs. And actually, because this drop-off model, we used it for about 30 days. And then once the pandemic, I wasn't doing drop-off, the hourly drop-off, because that was just a little bit too much exposure, cross-exposure between kids. So now I do it as little pods.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a camp. But
that's a great analogy. That's a great way to think of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but before the pandemic, there was also a sign-up form that you would check and say, I agree that I will be on the Lincoln Common premises.
Okay.
So parents are aware of our regulations. I'm not, following them around with the camera.
Yeah.
I want to trust their word and trust that, if their child is in our care, that they want the best for their child as well and want to be close by in case of any emergency.
Basically, they release liability,
Yes.
so you don't have to think about it. And they can go do whatever they want, but they're nearby probably.
Exactly. Yes, they should be able to be there within 3 to 5 minutes.
Does this exist in a lot of places? This
You
model?
know, I've heard in other countries actually that it exists.
It seems so logical.
Yeah.
And like it would make so much sense. You're going shopping, you're doing something, drop the kids off, we'll be back in a couple of hours.
Yep.
Like I know Equinox has that at their Lincoln Park location.
They do. Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's
You
part of it.
have to stay in Equinox though.
Yeah, and I never had two thoughts about how it worked, but it makes perfect sense. I was like, that's really nice. My wife, if we have kids, my wife can drop off the kids there, go do her thing, come back and get them, and she gets that couple of hours to herself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, so I do think, and this is something that when I was doing all the research and building up to this plan, I feel there is a little bit of a gap in the legislation surrounding childcare laws and regulations. And it's a tricky subject because if you're in childcare, you want the best for children. You want children to succeed and you want them to be safe and not harmed. And some of those rules, it seems like you have to, say that you have to provide a meal for a child if they're there all day, something like that. And so, but there are really strict rules around a short-term place like this.
Okay.
So like I was mentioning with the regulation of parents having to be on the site. And so I think that there could be some additional, changes that are kind of modernizing because so many parents now are working from home, especially with the pandemic. So many parents are working maybe a side hustle where they don't have to go, into an office or things like that. Or they're working part-time. That's so much more common now than it was 10 to 20 years ago. So that's something that I really think could be kind of the future of childcare. But like I mentioned, the regulations and rules surrounding it are kind of back in the in the old days.
With so many people working from home, but now people are coming out more, how has COVID changed your business model, if in any way, or how will it change moving forward in the future?
Yeah, so COVID has completely changed my business model, but temporarily. So I plan to move back to the hourly drop-off model. For right now, though, like I mentioned, I do drop-off learning programs. So I offer those in the morning. It's for 3 hours, and it's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings.
Okay.
And so it's play-based learning. We have a theme of the week. We read books. We sing songs.
So they're not just here. They're here learning something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What type of things do you teach children?
Yeah, Yeah, so we work on letter recognition. Usually there's a letter of the week, and we will do activities with finding that letter. I'll maybe put it on sticky notes around the space, and they have to come, they have to see if the sticky note is an uppercase L or a lowercase L, and then they match it to the sheet where I have the letters written, things like that. We work on kind of counting and numbers awareness. A lot of it is just trying to see what they're excited about and what they're interested in, and play on that. And so I'll introduce various themes. For example, last week I had one student who loved Rosa Parks. We were talking about Rosa Parks, and he just thinks she's so cool and so fascinating and wanted to read her book over and over and over again. And so that was really sweet. And even this week we switched topics, and he was asking more about Rosa Parks. So it's just fun to kind of follow where the kids will lead. So,
how did you fund all this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a venture capital firm that was connected through a family member, and they actually were able to fund. And so we split it 50-50. And so they put in the financial based on evaluation of all these kinds of things. And then I'm doing essentially the sweat equity from there. So
that's beautiful. So
yeah.
I did not expect you to say VC money came into this. So do they look at this as something that will be expanded past this model and kind of figure it out here and then bring this to many different places?
Yeah.
Is that because
somewhat?
Somewhat? Is that because the model is so unique?
Yes and no. Okay. So every decision that was made with the branding, with the creation of the treehouse, with the model, was made with what if we go to a different place with this as well. But I really want to focus on a quality service before expanding. Mm-hmm. So my short-term goal is to really make Play2day, Lincoln Park, Chicago, as phenomenal as possible, that people are dying to have it in other cities as well. That people visit one time and they're like, we got to get you in our city. Yeah. But the venture capital firm does see that potential in the future. So that's why they were excited about this idea. I say yes and no because it does depend on the state of the regulations in each state. So I'm from Indiana, and I actually know I have become friends with a woman in Indiana who has a similar concept business, but the kids can stay all day. And so there's just little intricacies of the rules and regulations that make it challenging to expand. But again, every decision is made with hopefully expanding someday in the future in mind.
What was it like working with a venture capital firm?
It was good. I had a great experience with them and continue to have a great experience with them. The main partner that I worked with really cared about my vision and allowed me to have a lot of autonomy with a lot of decisions, which was really great, but also was able to help in the important decisions like my first hire and things like that. They were willing and able to weigh in on those kinds of things. So I had a great experience with working with a VC firm.
Did you start with them initially?
Yes.
So right from the get-go?
Yep. From the get-go.
How did that come about?
Yeah, so like I said, it was a family connection.
But like, were you talking with your parents and you're just talking this idea, or talking to an uncle or a cousin?
Yep. So yeah, it was, I was talking to my parents. My dad is an entrepreneur in his own right as well. Okay. And he has a partner who is involved in this venture capital firm.
It's running in the blood.
So yes, very much so.
That's really cool.
My dad has a huge history of getting hired to work at companies and help them grow. And so he's been a great asset for me to be able to tap into once in a while as well.
So your dad encouraged this probably your whole life.
Yeah, he definitely does, and really encouraged us to get a great education and follow our passion. So he knows I'm passionate about children and passionate about being a service for the community. And so that's something that he heard this idea and thought, yeah, you're serving parents in a way that they could really use right now. Yeah. And that was really special to me to kind of have his approval and have his encouragement behind that. So.
When you would go visit other kids and go to their homes, was it ever different because most people have 9-to-5s, more corporate type jobs, than having an entrepreneur father?
Yes, it was. But I would say my father was very, he would travel a lot for work.
Okay.
And so it was, if I were, babysitting or nannying for a family that the dad came home at 5 every day, I was like, oh, what's that like? Because my dad is very, very focused on work and very passionate about his work. He likes to say he'll never retire. Mm-hmm. And so I get that from him a little bit of this. I think at one time I told him, Dad, I want to make sure I don't burn out. I think I need to make sure I take a Sabbath. And he said, Annie, Sabbath is for year 5. I was like, okay, got it. All right, I won't take a Sabbath until I'm 5 years in. So, that's how it is now. I'm working, 8-10 hours a day, 7 days a week. So trying to push through this pandemic. So. Mm-hmm.
What was some of the hardest things for you doing this? Because you did such a beautiful job. Thanks. When it's all done and finished, it looks so great, perfect. But I know it's not like that in the process.
Yeah, for sure. There are certain things that I wish I could change slightly about the space, but at a certain point, it's, I also created it to be adaptable. So some of the furniture or the shelves or things like that, I know that I'll rotate out books and toys.
Okay.
Or, nothing is, not nothing. The treehouse is permanent. That's definitely there. But I wanted it, like I said, I want it to be that kids are having a new and exciting experience, every time they come. And so I like to put activities out for kids who I know have been coming very often so that they might not have known that we have this type of toy or this puzzle, and I'll put it out kind of prominently for them so that the kids are able to really engage in different ways and unique ways every time. So,
how are people finding this business?
Honestly, Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram has been a huge driver of traffic. I think a lot of parents are on Instagram.
Are you doing Instagram ads?
I have, but I'm not doing it frequently. Okay. And honestly, I haven't seen a huge return.
So that's not what's driving the business?
Nope. It's really just word of mouth via social media, Instagram.
Here's the business on Instagram. Maybe they'll send it to their friend.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That'll put them in touch with you, and then
exactly.
The rest happens.
Yep.
We've been experiencing that a lot during the pandemic.
Really?
It's unbelievable. We sold our first house in the first 2 months of the pandemic via Instagram.
Yeah.
I never thought that would ever happen.
Everything's
and
so
it just
virtual.
keeps picking up. Yeah. And people are referring us so much because they just send a profile, they send a video, and this person saw this.
Yep. All they have to do is click follow, and then you're in their feed.
That's it.
And they think about you from time to time. And
as long as you're posting and doing your job, they're going to see you.
Exactly.
And as long as the content's good. And for you, I don't know it's not like you can, what do you do for content?
Great question. So I like to do activities with the kids, and so I'll try to post those.
Okay.
I'll post the books that we're reading that week, and some tips for parents. If you're trying to recreate this at home, here's how easy the setup was for this activity.
Okay, that's cool.
And
so instructionals for at home, if they saw it here or their kids enjoyed it here.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and kind of how you can recreate it. I also am selling, so a big component of play right now for children is sensory play,
okay.
Which is anything that's kind of tactile or things that are, you're experiencing with your senses. So it's really great for kids to be able to have a set space where they can have various different tactile experiences. So I sell right now, and this was something, again, formed out of the pandemic, was not something I had initially planned to do, but wanted to be able to serve parents who said they were at home and they didn't feel comfortable with going out into the world, into the germ-filled world that we had. And so I deliver a bin. The first one is called the Foundations bin, and so it's a large bin, and it has really anything that you would need in order to facilitate sensory play. So some cups, some bowls, certain paint sticks my favorite brand of paint sticks.
What are paint sticks?
Things like this. Paint sticks are awesome. I use them almost every day. They are paint, but they are essentially like it's like drawing with lipstick.
Okay.
So it's, you can
like
twist it up like a crayon, but thicker.
Okay.
So they're about this thick around, and the kids twist them up, they pull off the cap, and they're kind of like lipstick or like butter. And there's almost no mess.
Yeah, I was going to say, where I don't see any remnants of paint sticks. How do you clean it up?
I like to keep it very clean, but also, there is almost no mess. So sometimes, when we want to get messy, we'll use paintbrushes, and I have them put on their smocks and things. But if it's just a quick activity and there's not enough time for cleanup, then I'll get out the paint sticks and they can kind of just go nuts. So the foundation's bin has kind of everything you would need for the base of sensory play. And then each month I do a monthly subscription. Each month I do a monthly subscription with a theme, and I'll do 2 brand new books as well as a sensory base. So in the past we've done DIY snow. A favorite of a lot of parents is hand dyeing rice. So you can make rice different colors and then do colorful mixes. So for Valentine's this month, I did white, pink, and red, and it was a beautiful little mix. There's other things to use. Oatmeal I've used, things like that. So and I'll do little activities and kind of things that my goal is to have as little prep for parents at home as possible. So things are prepped for them, and then they can kind of take it and have a shared experience with their child.
Who puts this curriculum together? It's a lot of work.
Yeah, me.
All you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do, I will follow people on social media that are providing some of this content as well. And I like to tag them if I'm sharing an idea that I found from so-and-so. But yeah, I tailor it to our families, and based on the feedback, I got feedback this morning from one of the families that said, we like the sensory activities that are continuing. So instead of just a one and done craft, we like to have things that we can continue coming back to. Mm-hmm. So things like that are really helpful feedback, and I will take that and run with it for the next month and be able to adapt kind of from there. So,
what has the feedback been from the parents?
It's been great. The parents have been really, really supportive, especially throughout the pandemic. There's been a core group of parents who I'm so grateful that they have just said, we trust you, and we know that you are a safe space, that you are caring for our child, and that our child is going to be in good hands with you. And so I'm so grateful to those parents, because that's how I've survived throughout this. And I do think now that we're coming out, with the light at the end of the tunnel, the word is spreading, kind of like we had talked about with Instagram or with just word of mouth or things like that. And so people have seen or come once or, experienced in some capacity, whether it's my doing online story times or online learning or things like that. And they say, oh yeah, this is a company that cares about my kid. And right now it's just me. I'm the only staff. So I promise I do care about the kids, and I want to see them grow and learn. And that's been really, really fun over the course of the past year. So,
do you get, when someone comes here, they hear about what you're doing, are people surprised that this exists, or have they heard of it before?
Most people are surprised that it exists. Okay. So actually, even in the first few months, I would have to explain to people how this works and why. So kind of like I did with the beginning of, here are the rules, here is how it functions and why. This isn't something that's common. So people are like, okay, well, I have follow-up questions.
Yeah, I imagine. That's just like I did right here.
Exactly.
I hear it and I'm like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Completely new idea. Let's shift. I got to think all new questions now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I completely understand that with families, and when parents want to drop their child off somewhere, they want to be completely sure that that place is safe and trustworthy. And so I knew from the bat, right off the bat, that there was going to be, a trust building process. And so that's what I knew was just going to take time with the parents, and hopefully am continuing to do that throughout the community and various outreach things. But so I would say the feedback overall has been really good.
So you have a unique business model. What is your typical competition?
It's a great question. So it's been, I would say there are indirect competitors in Playspaces, which is, an area where you pay admission to go with your child. And the parent comes in with the child. They are responsible for their own child, but it's a new environment, it's new toys, things like that. So,
which are dead in the pandemic world.
So yeah, the one that has been really, really prominent, and I used to take the children I used to nanny for all the time. Unfortunately, their Chicago location has had to close, but they have a location out in the suburbs that is still going strong, which is great. So play spaces. And then there's also a component of parents who like to take their children to classes or things like that. And so if you're spending X amount of money, would you rather go and have an enriching experience with your child, or are you looking for a break and you're saying, I actually want someone else to be watching my child for a couple hours and I need to go have a coffee or do something that really refreshes my soul. And so I would say classes as well are something that would be a competitor. However, we offer classes, especially again with the pandemic and shifting things. We were doing a lot of outdoor classes in the Lincoln Common Plaza over the summer, and hope to continue doing classes in the winter and spring. So
your rates could obviously change, but what are they now, and how do they compare to other competition competing companies?
Yep. So again, that's a tricky question because right now, so I'll give you the two offerings that we have and then what the rates are.
Okay.
So the first offering is what I was talking about, that pseudo camp, where it's called Play to Learn. And it's a drop-off program where it is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 3 hours. You can choose to drop your child off 1, 2, or 3 days of that time. If you drop them off 1 day a week, it's $75 per week. If you drop them off 2 days a week, it's $125 per week. And 3 days is $195 per week.
That's extremely reasonable.
So I like to think so.
I think so. It starts at $25 an hour, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So drop your kid off.
Exactly.
And forget about them.
Yep. Basically.
For 3 hours. Sounds
and hope that they're having fun.
Yeah.
Which they almost always are.
I see my friends with kids and they'd pay a lot more than that to have 3 hours to themselves.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I like to be, I want to be there for the community. Obviously, it's a business. I have to be able to cover expenses, but I want to be able to be accessible to people
You're in Lincoln Park. They have money here.
Right? Yeah. So that is the Play to Learn offering. Then I also do, and this formed out of the pandemic, just again, out of a desire to not cross-contaminate or not expose people to additional germs. People were very nervous about that. Understandably, I am too. So I do private reservations. So a family can actually rent out the entire 1,500 square foot space for a couple hours. So that is for private, for just one family, it's $65 an hour. And then every additional hour is $25 an hour. You can also do a semi-private, which is $85 an hour, and then each additional hour is $35. And that's with 2 families, but you guys come together. It's someone in your pod.
Okay.
So semi-private can be a little confusing because you think you're splitting it with someone else, but no, again, I want it to be as safe and want people to be as comfortable.
Instead of my family going and having
possible.
dinner, we're having dinner with another family.
Exactly. It's essentially a play date that you don't have to have in your own house. Someone else cleans up after you. You don't have to feel like you are hosting anybody. You can just go to this space. I've had clients who have done interviews for a potential nanny here. I thought that was a great idea because they get to engage with the kid.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry
the best
about
of everything.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't have to worry about a new person coming to their house, all these things. So clients have been really smart with it. So there's private, which is 1 family, semi-private, which is 2 families, and then group, which is 3 or more families, as long as it is no more than 10 people, including kids.
Okay.
So that was kind of the cap for the majority of the winter with, the COVID regulations. And so that is really where I wanted to keep and make it feel safe for everyone involved. So some people actually had little small birthday parties here. So they would rent out the space and bring in balloons and decorations, and they would be able to have a little celebration. And again, that's not something that I originally had in mind. I originally thought, this place is not going to be conducive to 40 kids running around.
Yeah.
But now that birthday parties are a little bit smaller, it worked. So I've had several people do that over the last couple of months, and they've enjoyed it. Yeah.
When you're determining pricing, or you're determining the different plans to offer,
Yep.
Are you working with the VC to figure these things out?
I will get feedback from the VC, and I mentioned before that numbers are not necessarily my strong suit. So I do like to have their professional opinion on that. But a lot of it is kind of determined based on the market in Chicago. You know, the VC is based in Indiana, and so they don't necessarily know the competition and competitors' rates. So that is yes and no.
I think it's great because you can focus on what you're good at. You know what the competition is just by being in the market.
Right.
And they can help guide you to make financial decisions. And okay, we need X of these plans this month to stay profitable.
Exactly.
We need this just to break even. They can put those charts together. So
Right.
you're not doing that work, so you can keep focusing, but you have those numbers floating around your heads. You understand what you have to meet and what obligations you have.
Yes, exactly. I was grateful enough to, through the VC, get connected with someone who builds business models,
Okay.
Financial modeling. And
What did that cost?
initially, so they did it for free.
That's so cool.
I know, they did it for free.
I need someone like that.
I know, they were an amazing connection and really helpful. So that person initially had a model, but again, based on the pre-pandemic prices and numbers and all those things. So not wanting to take too much advantage, I haven't really restructured those. I've just taken what I learned from that process of learning about a model the first time, and then also carried it into, here's the structure and the programming we have going on now. But it's been challenging, to say the least.
What was the most challenging or hardest thing that you've come across? I know this has made you cry at least once. Because there are so many moving pieces. It's so emotional. And this is your baby.
Yep, I know.
This is yours. And I can feel it. When I speak with you, I can tell.
Yeah.
When you and I talked initially, I could tell you're the boss. I had no idea how many people were here, how big this was. All I knew is it opened. It was in Lincoln Commons. In being here, you can feel your energy and you can feel what you're accomplishing.
Thanks.
What's been the hardest thing?
So this is the first thing that comes to mind. I might have to take another minute to say if it was really the hardest thing, but this was I definitely cried about this. Day one, opening day. So we had a pre-sale week where people I had relationship with could come in and try it out and give feedback. Opening day was February 15th, which is almost, we're almost a year old now. And I, that evening, had several parents who had contacted me about the pricing structure for siblings.
Okay.
And they said, if I have multiple kids, this is not cost effective for me. And that was one of the hardest things I had heard, because I thought, I want to be accessible. Like I mentioned, I want to be able that parents don't feel like they can't afford to take some time for themselves. So that was one of the hardest things. And I actually that night had several calls with my contact at the VC, completely, not completely restructured, but adjusted the pricing for siblings, the sibling discount, and reintroduced the adjusted pricing the next day.
So you changed it immediately based on the feedback.
Yeah.
And that's what a smart entrepreneur does. If something isn't working, or if you get feedback that's going to allow you to expand, you have to jump on that immediately.
Right. And it wasn't just one person, it was several, and people who, again, I had relationship with, who I would say, hey, you have 2 kids. How do you feel about this? And they were honest and just said, here's how I feel. I wouldn't come every week, but I would come once a month. And I want people to be able to come every week. So that was something that I really took advantage of. It was hard to hear that feedback, and felt stressful because it was opening day and I was so excited.
You're banking on those numbers.
Yes, exactly. And so that was a challenge. One of my biggest challenges. I think another was just how to pivot through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I would say I've, on the other side, several months out of that initial lockdown time, I would say I feel like I pivoted in multiple ways, providing online learning, selling this product online, being able to have kids in person, but also, virtually. And so I would say that was something that I just was trying to meet the needs of every parent. And I still want to be able to do that. But I do, as an entrepreneur, want to say, what am I really good at and what is the best thing? And lately I've been saying, you know, my biggest asset is this location and this space. That's and great. So I want to be able to use that. So whether it's for classes or private play or, you know, drop-off care or things like that, I want to be able to utilize this space and not necessarily, I do offer virtual things, but not necessarily focusing my time on virtual offerings.
The fact that you're still here shows your resolve, and your ability to come up with new things shows your resilience. Because, you know, in my business, nothing changed a bunch.
Yeah.
People still need to buy homes. People are still doing it. How they did it might have changed. In the beginning, there were some virtual showings. But here we are a year later, and it's pretty much the same thing.
Yep, sure.
I look at every business around me, and every single business had to change everything about what they did. And even the corporate people in our company, like that all changed. Our office was shut down. Yeah. We used to have the biggest array of snacks and goodies, and all that's gone, right?
Yep.
No one's in our office practically. Some people are coming back now. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
For doing that.
Thank you. It was challenging, and I think I mentioned, you know, I had a team initially. They were almost all working part-time, and that was one of the things I was most excited about, was to have people who love being in childcare also, and a lot of them were younger, and so they were college students, and just being able to kind of pour into those teens and adults, young adults. So that was fun as well. What shifted a lot, obviously, over the summer was then I had to kind of become a one-woman operation. So I already was functioning as social media, email, website, all those things, but I wasn't even able to delegate any of that. So I think that was another challenge in, okay, how do I prioritize my time? What do I spend most of my time on? Because yes, it's important to create social media content, of course, but I want to see a return on whatever I'm investing my time in. And so, but sometimes that also meant, you know, building relationships with parents, talking to a parent for an extra 20 minutes at pickup and saying, hey, so-and-so has been having a little bit of a hard time. Maybe here's something we can do a little bit differently. Things like that.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs start out thinking they're going to be the boss, they're going to be the visionary, and they're the employee from day one. And it's something you have to get used to. And you're right, because you're wearing all these different hats.
Yeah.
And you want to have the hat that fits you best.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, I don't know what it is or how long it takes to get there. I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah, sure.
I think you'll keep going with this. It's really great. I think the space is awesome.
Thank you.
And I know you'll succeed doing this. And I hope you can open up more locations and bring this model to different places where it can benefit people. Because I think it's so nice to have a place I could drop my kids off, go have dinner, go get a massage across the street. And there's so many different things you can do. Lincoln Commons really offers it all. And this is the place for the families. Because without here, the family element doesn't come into play. And it's Play2day, right?
Play2day.
So there we go. Play2day.
Yep.
Thank you very much for doing this, Annie.
Thank you for having me.